Hi, this is Jeff Carmen with Elite BSC. Hope you're doing well. Hey, in this video, I want to cover a couple of things. First, I want to tell you a little bit about Elite BSC, and then I want to show you our pricing tool. Elite BSC was formed in 2017, really as a group of like-minded janitorial companies came together. They wanted an organization where ideas could be shared, where there could be some coaching and consulting and those kinds of things, and training courses for team members and all of those kinds of things. And so at the time, Jordan Tong, who is the CEO of France Building Services, started this company. I came over a couple of years later, and now he and I together work to serve our member companies. And there's about 135 member companies that are part of the Elite BSC group. There's a number of things that members are provided each month. There's a message board where daily there's questions that are posed to the group, and people of all different kinds of companies answer or provide input on a variety of different questions that are answered or asked. It's just a great resource. And then we provide content on a weekly and a monthly basis. We offer a monthly webinar. So again, it's just a group of like-minded companies who want to serve customers really well, who want to treat their team members really well, and also want to make a reasonable profit and continue to grow their companies at a reasonable rate. We firmly believe in finding customers who fit your ideal customer profile and then growing at a reasonable rate. And that's a lot of what we do, is help people do all of those things. And so if joining Elite BSC is something that you think you might be interested in, shoot me an email. We'll set up a 15 to 20-minute Zoom call and we can chat about it. And if it's something that you think, hey, this is something that I think I want to move forward with and join the group, then we can get that taken care of. If you say, hey, doesn't really interest me, then no questions asked, and we'll just have a great conversation. But still, we're available. If you ever have any questions about anything or need help with anything, just shoot me an email. I'm always glad to help. The second part of this video is what I want to show is this pricing tool that we developed. And this is actually a version of something that we developed at France Building Services, and we used for several years to help us price opportunities. We've refined it a little bit as the years have went on. And what you see in front of you is something that we use when we're talking to Elite members about pricing specific deals. This is just a simple Excel spreadsheet, and I'm going to take you through an example to show you how it works. At the end, if you'd like to have this Excel spreadsheet, I think it's available on our website. But if you just want me to shoot it to you in email, I'm glad to do that as well. So this thing is set up so that you can put the customer name in here and save this file so that you can go back to it if you ever want to review your pricing, or if you didn't win the first time and you're going back and repricing, you could use this. So let's say this in this example, let's just say this is a logistics company, a warehouse, or a distribution center. And let's make some assumptions here. Let's say we've done our facility walkthrough. The person we met with said, hey, we'd like to have a day porter to kind of take care of the restrooms and the break areas while the team members are here. And then after they leave, then your team can come in here and clean. And so let's just say that we estimated that a 6-hour day porter would work to do the work that's necessary while their team members are there. And then let's say that we estimate that it's going to take 18 hours each evening to clean the building. And so we would just go across through here and we can put the work hours in like that. Now, the great thing about this tool is we've got different sections for different kinds of workers. So we have first, second, and third shift cleaners. We also, you can see at the top, we can have a project manager. So if you have a large opportunity and you want a project manager in there, there's a place for that. If you want to pay your team members differently, if there's weekend hours, you can come down here in this area and do that. Here's shift leads. And then down there at the bottom is just a number of other kinds of jobs that you can put in there. So this one's pretty straightforward. And so after we put in the work hours, you can see it calculates the total weekly hours and total annual hours. And let's say in this particular case that we're going to pay these team members $15 an hour. Again, depending on where you live, that could be wildly high or wildly low, or right in the neighborhood of where you're paying your team members. So that's going to help us capture right here on line. I think that's line 29. That's our direct labor cost, which, as you know, is the biggest portion of, or the biggest part of calculating our price. So at this juncture, we've calculated our direct labor. I'll make a note here. If you offer vacation time to your team members, there's a place in here that you can put a factor in there to calculate that. At France Building Services, we had a factor of 1.2%. That was just what it worked for us. But if you're not doing that, you don't need to put anything in there. This line is labor burden, which would be your payroll taxes, your workers' comp insurance, your general liability insurance, all of those things. So I'll put a factor in there. So it's 12.5% of your direct labor. That's how that line is calculated. And so you can see when I put that percentage in there, those numbers drop in. This one's interesting, employee benefits. If your company offers employee benefits, you can put a factor in there. At France Building Services, we did have a factor there. Let's just say in this scenario that there's no employee benefits that are affiliated with this. Janitorial supplies are going to be things like chemicals and rags and gloves and all of those kinds of things that you would use. And in our case, when I keep going back to France Building Services, it's the company we're affiliated with. We used a factor, and that factor was 3.6%. 3.6% of direct labor was what we used to calculate our janitorial supplies. And you can see that those numbers dropped in there when I put that in. The next line is depreciation. So in a number of jobs that our member companies bid on, and at France Building Services, when we bid on jobs, we would have equipment in there. And so in order to capture that cost, we've got a calculator down here for depreciation. And so let's say in this case, we're going to have a small floor scrubber, floor scrubber. And let's say that we're going to have one of those, and let's say the cost on that is $7,500. And you can see whenever I put that amount in there, that the depreciation jumps up in here. It's linked to the spreadsheet above. So we're capturing that. Here's a place where we can put in a factor for equipment maintenance. So we put a floor scrubber in there. We're going to need things like squeegees. We may, we may have to fix a cord. Just a lot of different things may pop up. So we can put a factor in there. You can put 15%. You can put whatever you want in there. But that's a number so you can have some dollars in your price to cover those kinds of things. And then this is a factor. This other expenses is sort of miscellaneous. It captures things like uniforms, any PPE that might be required, drug screens, background checks, uniforms, all of those things, or employee appreciation, that might fall in there. So let's put a factor in there of 1.5%. And so as you can see right now, what we have is we've got our total direct operating costs. So that's, about 111,000, almost 111,800. And then at this time, on here, we've got $9,300 worth of expenses per month. So that's just expenses. All right, now we can move on down, and I've got a factor in here. I've got a line in here that you can put a factor in here for indirect cost or overhead. And there's a lot of theories, a lot of opinions on whether you should include overhead in your pricing or not. We can have a separate discussion offline for that. We don't include that when we price things at France Building Services. But if you want to put a factor in there, let's say we put a 5% overhead factor in there. You can see that drops in there. And let's say that then we go down here and we put our markup at 25%. And so what this has calculated for us is the total annual cost and the total monthly cost, or the total monthly price and total annual price to the customer. And in this case, it's $12,228. That would be what we would propose to the customer. We like having round numbers like that, or not round numbers, but we like having kind of inexact looking numbers like that, because it shows the customer that we have went through a precise calculation to come up with that price for a customer, for prospective customers. The nice thing about this tool is it's pretty flexible. you can see down here at the under the next line, that's our projected margin. If we mark it up by 25%, our projected margin would be 20%. If you want that to be a little higher, you can come up here and you can change the markup anywhere you want. So I'm going to put it back at 25%. There's a couple of other numbers that are calculated down here. So here's your labor to sales ratio, which takes the just your labor as a percentage of the total revenue, and so it's 63.8%, which is a little high for our blood, but for this example, I'm going to leave it there. There's a supply percentage. That's supplies as a percentage of the total revenue. And then here's an hourly rate, and we use this. And let's say in this particular case, the customer said we occasionally will need some help on the weekend. So sometimes we'll get with customers and they'll say, hey, one time a month or a couple of Saturdays a month, we might work on the weekends. Can you give us an hourly price for that? So what this shows is $23.52, but we usually will bump that up because we know that we're going to have to pay overtime, or we likely would have to pay overtime, and maybe we might have to pay people maybe a couple of more hours, dollars an hour to work on the weekends. And so we might bounce that up to $25 to $30 an hour. And that's what we would propose to the customer. So, kindly in wrapping this up, what this tool allows us to do then, it allows us to look at all of our prices and we can present our price to the customer. And we feel confident that we have captured everything, all of our costs when we put it out to the customer. Now, the other part of this tool that we use that's kind of neat is we use it whenever we're repricing or in pricing negotiations in the next year. And so let's say we were able to sell this to the customer and they decided to pay us the $12,228. But now what we do is we've come up here in the following year, and let's say that what we have found is that we've had some team members that stayed with us and we've adjusted their wages. And now what we are going to do is we need to bump this up to $1,575 and $1,575 here for those team members. And we go down here to the bottom and we can say to the customer, hey, you've been paying $12,228. We need to increase your price to $12,000. I keep saying that wrong, I think. $12,228. We need to increase the price to $12,830. That's a $602 per month increase, which is almost a 5% increase. So again, you can use this tool for repricing as well. Nothing fancy about this, but it's I think a really nice tool to help make sure that you've captured all of your costs. So again, if you would like to reach out to me, my email was right there on the screen. It's jeff@elitebsc.com. Just feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to chat with you, tell you a little bit more about the group, or just answer any questions that you have. Again, I hope 2025 is a great year for you, and I hope you have a great evening. Thank you. Bye-bye.